Hi, everyone. My name is Hannah Went. I'm the Director of Operations here at TruDiagnostic. We are doing a live Q&A with you today with Dr. Katherine Zagone, the Chief Medical Officer and co-founder of Clockwize. She has been supporting women and couples easily conceive their healthiest babies for almost a decade. And she also runs Gentera Center for Precision Medicine in Beverly Hills, California, where she bridges cutting edge science with tried and true methods for exceptional results. She's excited to bring effective science, a warm heart, and an industry-changing approach to the world through Clockwise Inc. as well. Thank you so much for being on today with us, Dr. Z.
Thank you so much, Hannah. Happy to be here.
Okay, perfect. All right. Pull this. Okay. Perfect. So, Dr. Z, I know I just gave a little bit of an introduction to you, but can you just tell us a little bit about yourself and why you decided to found Clockwise?
Yeah. So I'll start with a very personal aspect. I'm in my mid-30s. I'm single. I'm in LA and I want babies. And I was feeling the biological clock ticking like a lot of my patients were then when they were coming to see me. So I've helped couples who were struggling, and I've also helped couples who were not struggling but knew they wanted to get as healthy as possible before getting pregnant. And I've also helped lots of women who wanted to freeze eggs because they also didn't have the partner and wanted to be able to have babies when it was time.
Yeah.
So I'm like in the same position as my patients. And I was introduced to the TruDiagnostic biological age test, the TruAge, and had been using it on my patients for a little while, and had also seen, that chronological age wasn't necessarily the determining factor for fertility. That there were all these other factors. Like I've had, 42-year-old mamas get 9 grade A embryos after multiple failed IVFs of 0 embryos or no viable embryos and miscarriages and all that sort of thing. So like I had an idea that this was possible, was introduced to your test, and took it thinking like I'm a naturopathic doctor and I'm doing everything right. I know I know all about this. And I actually came back 4 years older than I was.
Yeah, absolutely.
And had like a mini meltdown. And then it was like, okay, now I need to like hack this. So I went through the like 78-page report and was like, what are all the little things that I'm not doing currently or that I need to do better at? Put myself on a protocol, retested 8 weeks later, which I know is a little bit early to retest, but was able to rewind my biological clock by 2 full years and 8 weeks.
Wow.
Which to
Yeah,
me
that's
was like,
impressive.
yeah, I was like, that's hope right there
Very.
for all the women in their 30s wanting babies who are single, whether you're in LA or not. Like that is hope right there.
That's
And from there I was like, well, is this a metric for fertility? Because we talk about biological age and the biological clock for fertility, but this specific marker with the DNA methylation, like, does it matter? And sure enough, Ryan, I'd been like hounding Ryan. I was like, do you have a paper on fertility? And like, finally, I think it was like November 11th of, I want to say 2020, on like a magical date, he sent me a paper, and it did show that women with advanced biological age did have poorer outcomes on anything with ovarian stimulation. So like egg freezing, IVF, et cetera. And I was like, oh, okay. So this does have to do with fertility. And at that point, my best friend had been watching my journey, and she's a VP of operations for a bigger company. And I basically approached her and I was like, women everywhere need to be able to have this data. They need to be able to like know what it means for their fertility, and they need to know that they can rewind their biological clock. I need you to help me to bring this to the masses. And she's like, I'm in.
Yeah. I love it. I don't even think I've heard that entire journey, and we've been working together, like you said, for a couple years now. So it's great to understand how you all started and the trajectory of where you're going to. I know you all have a lot of exciting things coming in, and there's a lot of research out there about the biological aging, methylation in general, and fertility itself that people just don't know about, or it hasn't been uncovered or in the media. So that's a great point as well. And touching back just on Clockwise and what you all offer, when a client comes to you or they approach you and they're interested in your testing, what can they really expect from you if they work with Clockwise?
Yeah. So, I mean, the first step, what I love is that it's so easy. Like anybody can do this at home. It's a simple finger prick, whereas before patients are paying, 5 to 10 grand to work with me one-on-one.
Right.
you're getting like not my entire brain downloaded into a report, but one, you're able to get the test at home, do it easily. And then you get, I like to describe it as like 3 separate sets of markers. So we do the biological age test, which is the conventional, like that you guys have been, doing since the beginning. So DNA methylation to look at biological age. Then we do the Dunedim pace, which I like to call the aging speedometer. So, and I describe that to our potential clients as like how fast you're aging in this moment. So even if your years are a little bit older, if your pace comes back slower, like more towards the turtle side when you see the graphic, that means you're doing a lot of things right. We might just be able to slow down the clock even more. And then and we just need to do it for longer to keep the years falling off the clock.
Right.
And then the third component of testing panel is our Clock Tox panel. And this is our proprietary panel that we, created. Still using DNA methylation, still same few drops of blood, but we're looking at a few different classes of toxin exposure. So we've got propylparaben for the parabens, we've got BPA and BPF, and we've got 6 different phthalates. And so we're showing, are you currently being exposed to these? And what's crazy to me about this panel is, because we're doing DNA methylation, it's like, it's not just showing up in your urine. Like that's actually, how we extracted the algorithm to get this panel. But if it's showing up, we know that it's altering your epigenetics. It's altering how your DNA is being expressed, which is really crazy.
Such a great point there. Yeah. And that's called the Clock Tox, you
Clock
said.
Tox.
Right.
And it's
Clock Tox.
all part of the FertilityWise test. So it's really one box, one panel, but you get these 3 markers. And then we also give you what's called our FAST framework, which is the things I would be giving to patients to start to rewind the biological clock right away.
Absolutely.
And we do it in an empowering way. We do it in, I wrote every single word of our report because I wanted it to feel like my patient, like if you were a patient in my office, like you were sitting in front of me and you can feel that, like, 1, we can rewind the clock no matter what age you came back at. And 2, like there's so much hope for fertility, both through this and just through optimizing your health in general, which, biological age is also a marker of health in general, cellular health.
Exactly. Yeah, I love that. It seems like a relatively cheap option compared to what people are, like you said, used to paying for working one-on-one with you, right? They're getting a little bit of a taste or an insight into what it could look like being a client of yours on a larger level. So it does give them a really great overview with a lot of good information. I need to do the Clock Talks too, because I don't even think I've done that. So I want to know, if you're a woman, no matter what age you are, and you're wanting to get pregnant at some point in your life, it's the question almost is, why wouldn't you be taking this testing, right? And understanding
Absolutely.
where you are, because as we know, these methylation markers are also changeable with different environmental factors, different lifestyle factors that you're absolutely in control of. So I think that's what makes it really exciting, as well as we know they're changeable and there are steps to take after the testing.
Totally.
And talking more about why you got started in this in the first place. I know you've been in the regenerative space and preventative, integrative, functional, whatever you'd like to call it, for a very long time, but you were really one of the early adopters to see the potential of this epigenetic methylation testing. And I know you're really interested in research and development within your own testing and what we can do in the future to build on the different data points we're gathering. So can you describe a little bit further why you think aging is so related to fertility? I know you touched on that at the beginning, but can you just talk more about that link?
Yeah. Across science and across medicine, as humans, I think we might be the only, or maybe there's one other species, but where the female goes through menopause and doesn't just die right away. So there is a point where we stop being able to reproduce, where we stop being able to have babies. And women are waiting longer to conceive these days. And I think there's a lot of beautiful reasons for that, but also beautiful outcomes from that. Like, we're more emotionally stable, we're more financially stable, we're more relationship stable. Like, there's a lot of reasons why it's beautiful to have babies, quote unquote, older. And but our biology hasn't really been designed for that necessarily. So we typically, the only aging marker we've really had up through now was chronological age. And then looking at, AMH, FSH, some, hormones, some other markers for fertility specifically. But with the advent of being able to actually have a number for biological age, this on its own is revolutionary for fertility, because like what I've described in practice is it's not about chronological age, it's actually about health. And now we have that health reflected through biological age. Like how healthy your cells are is more determinant of how long and how well you can get pregnant than just what birthday you're celebrating.
Absolutely. No, I love that description. And we, for anyone listening as well, you definitely want to start testing as early as possible, I would say. Would you agree with that, Dr. Z?
Absolutely. The younger you start optimizing your cells and your health and your biological age, and the longer period of time you keep these toxins out of your system, the better your overall health, the better you age, and the better your fertility down the line. So like, for example, I'm 35. By the way, on my 35th birthday, my biological age came back at 31 3/4. So
there you go.
I had gone from 4 years
Nice.
older to almost 4 years younger. And but I share that because like if I have a patient or a client who comes in and they're like 42 chronologically, biologically she could be 37. Correct. Or she could be 47, awesome. or beyond either direction. But if she had, so let's say she's 47 biologically, if she had come in a few years earlier and we had a year or two to rewind that biological clock, now she comes in at 42 and she's 37 biologically. There's a lot better statistics for being able to conceive naturally, conceive easily, or conceive better with IVF. So the 40s are it's not like fertility falls off a cliff at 40, but it depends on what your biological age actually is. Like I said, like if you're 40, but you're 47.
Yeah. I always like the term, it's a lot easier to prevent than to intervene later on, right? When
totally
you're already starting to have older biological aging, or even to the extent of a disease phenotype, right? You definitely just want to identify it early, because again, the key word here being modifiable, changeable, mendable, as
and
well.
And there is a point of no return. Like, once someone's in menopause, I have not yet been able to do that, but maybe one of these days soon. So starting as soon as possible. And then also with the toxins, because the reason we created the clock tox panel is because all of those toxins have been shown to accelerate ovarian aging.
That's was going to be my next question, actually. Yeah. I wanted you to touch on the clock tox panel and just those specific outcomes and why those are so important, why you chose to put those in the test as well.
Yeah. So a few reasons. One, they're all endocrine disruptors. So we know they mess with health, they mess with hormones. Two, we know that they accelerate ovarian aging and are associated with decreased egg quality and egg count over time. We also know that, like, we do have some studies which are cited in our report where couples and women going through either egg retrieval or embryo creation, IVF, got poorer results when mom and dad were being exposed to those things.
Gotcha. All very important.
All very important. Yeah. So if you're going to go spend like 50 grand on IVF, you want to make sure you're getting the best results. Make sure you don't have the toxins in your system. Although if you were able to manage those exposures, 5 years earlier, you might not need IVF in the first place. We don't know for sure, but these are, based on what we have and how we know how these toxins work, it's a possibility. And if that's a possibility, I would choose that possibility.
Exactly. Really great predictors that may tell you of an outcome, or, help guide your decision. And I think, me personally, more information. I want to know everything about my health. I want to know everything about myself, right? In order to get that best quality of life that everyone's always going after, or the increase in not only lifespan, but health span as well, right? We don't want to be old and not be able to, go grab our mail or play with our children or grandkids if we choose to have children.
Yeah. Well, and so the craziest part about the clock tox, and this kind of like leads into more research down the line, is on the transgenerational epigenetics component, because some of these toxins, when they're in mom, when she's pregnant, we know they affect baby's health 7 years, 10 years, potentially their entire life because of epigenetics.
Yeah. It even goes, basically, I have epigenetic signatures for my grandma, right? 3 generations after me. And then if I choose to have children, I will pass those down 3 generations well, grandma 3 generations before me 3 generations after me. So it's crazy, like you said, how that just travels, and we're actually passing these signatures or these markers on. So even testing and looking at it can help, your future children or outcomes, or,
Yeah.
whatever you
And that,
decide to do with your life.
those are from everything. Those are, the age markers. Those are the toxin markers. Those are also the trauma markers. So I was actually at the biohacking conference and listened to Dr. Rabin speak, and he actually said it's 10 generations that
Wow.
trauma can get passed down through the lineage. I don't know how they're tracking 10 generations, but at least in animals, I'm sure is what they're
Oh,
tracking.
definitely.
Shorter lifespans.
Yeah. The trauma's a whole nother, oh, we could go down a rabbit hole with that. That is
Yeah.
very interesting to me as well. Talking more about the exposures in the Clock Talks panel that you just mentioned, I know that, again, the Clockwise team, you all are very interested in just going out in all these different directions and expanding everything you have to offer. So in terms of using the methylation testing, what other ways do you think that you can use this information? So what are some other clinical uses or outcomes that this testing would be really helpful to predict or measure when you consider this with different clients? Are there any other insights that they can gain, or, again, going maybe even into their treatment, right? What can they do about it? Kind of give us a full circle information about that.
Yeah. So clinically, what I love about both our FertilityWise test for fertility, and then also just the suite of information that you guys offer, for actual patients of physicians. Um, there's different things we can look at, like, like blood sugar or weight loss, and things like that. What I love is that it's a great benchmark.
Mhm.
um it's a great overall marker if we had to put one number on somebody's health, because I've used this for, I see more than just fertility. I see, executive performance, I see mind body medicine, hormones, women's health, all sorts of things. um the other component that I really find this useful for is, in the fertility specifically, it actually changes what treatments I'm recommending.
Okay.
So if somebody, because I don't want to recommend a test if it's not going to change the decisions I'm going to make. I don't want somebody to spend $500 if I'm going to give everybody the same thing. Now, our report has all the same things that everybody can do, but that's because, you're not sitting in front of me talking to me. So like if somebody comes back younger
Mhm.
and they want to conceive or freeze eggs in the next 3 months, I'm not going to tell them to do any fasting.
Gotcha.
If they come back the same age and they're, wanting to conceive or freeze eggs in the next 3 months, probably still no fasting. If they come back older and they want to conceive or they want to freeze eggs in the next 3 months, we're going to figure out how to get a little bit of fasting in at the right times of the cycle before it gets too close to the actual conception or freezing.
Okay.
Um,
Interesting. Yeah. Yeah.
and with
I
the clock talks as well, like if I have a mama, because a lot of women, like, I just want to get pregnant now. Like, I don't want to wait 3 months. I don't want to do anything. But if their clock talks comes back with a lot of exposures, you know, we have to make a decision. Like,
Mhm.
do you want to get pregnant now and potentially have these risks of your child being exposed in the womb to these things? Or do you want to wait a couple of months? Let's get them out of your system through avoidance and through your natural detoxification mechanisms. And then you're giving your child a better chance at health for the rest of their life.
Yeah, that's very powerful. Right there. Cause yeah, absolutely. Again, going back to passing this on, right? I would say probably most people would want to know, how to best conceive or best deliver, right? All of the prenatal, guidance from a professional like yourself on, where to go once you have these results. I think all of that is really invaluable.
Definitely.
Yeah. And going back to your first point as well, when you said, I would just really like to use this for fertility, and I like to use this even in all my other clients, you're exactly right. We pull all of these different disease, even COVID-19, but cardiovascular disease, chronic kidney disease, diabetes. When we look at those as these overarching diseases that are really overtaking the United States and the entire world, the number one risk factor for all of those is going to be age. So again, we want to measure it. We need to get that baseline. And then the Clockwise test even takes it a step further and goes over the clock talks, that panel where, you can look at what you're being exposed to and know your risk, especially if you're a woman and you want to have children as well.
Absolutely.
So in the future, what do you imagine a Clockwise looks like? What is your next venture or what is, next on your docket?
So there's two directions that I want to go with this.
Mhm.
My CEO is on board for both of them, and we have some other ideas as well. The first is that we want to use the data that we're getting from supporting all of these women and couples to conceive healthy babies easily. We want to use that data to create what's called a fertility predictability algorithm. So this is potentially industry changing. So once we have the outcome data of like this woman got 25 eggs, this couple got 3 viable embryos, this woman got pregnant naturally, this woman had a miscarriage, like whatever happened with those 900,000 CPG sites that we're able to track, go in, what are those, beta methylation values at what CPGs that are then predictive for those outcomes.
Mhm.
And I remember when I was first describing this to Ryan and his eyes just got really big. I'm like, I know. And be able to use that so that the next version of our FertilityWise test is really, you still do a finger prick at home, but now it's able to give you you've got a 73% chance of getting 5 or more grade A embryos if you and your partner do IVF right now. Or you
Right.
have a 12% chance of having a successful IVF round if you do it right now. But we know it's modifiable. So here are the things that you can then go do to improve those outcomes before you go and spend $50,000 or even before egg freezing.
Sure.
Because if you're going to pump yourself full of hormones and go through the extraction process and spend the money, anywhere from $12,000 to $20,000, you don't want to have to do it multiple times if you don't have to. You want to get the best yield. You want to get the best quality. Let's be efficient.
Yeah, definitely. That's life-changing. That's world-changing.
Yeah.
Again, right now we're with the epigenetic methylation testing, it's still so new. So a lot of companies who are doing this testing are gathering data to predict and have these different outcomes. So when people can actually see the scalability of that and, imagine different predictors, that is really going to change the industry. Like you said, it's going to change healthcare as we know it.
Yeah.
Especially for those who are wanting to conceive and start a family. So I think that is, that'll be exciting when we get there.
Absolutely. And then the second area that we'd love to dive more into is the transgenerational epigenetics. And we haven't, Sarah, my co-founder, and I, we haven't even gotten into that yet. We talk about it, we know it's a thing and we know it's important. But we're really working on that fertility predictability algorithm first. And then, so there's that transgenerational epigenetics. And then beyond that, like, we'll see. I just feel like the world is up and we'll be guided to whatever the next thing is. So
yeah, that's great. I have one more question for you here, the last one. So I think your story at the beginning is very inspiring, right? I think a lot of people could probably relate. And, so for those people who are maybe on the fence about taking the test or maybe they're, wanting to, but what is the one piece of advice you would give them or what would you say to just push them and say, just do it? This is what you need in your life right now.
Yeah. I mean, the earlier you start, the better your chances of getting what you want. Yeah. And there's always hope. But again, the earlier you start, the more hope you have, the more time you have. And then time is actually on your side because you can age backwards as your chronological age is moving forwards. So the earlier, the better. Prevention is better than, trying to problem solve down the line. And this could be the best couple $100 you've ever spent.
I love it. That is great, to the point. Really great advice. So I appreciate you so much, Dr. Z. Thank you for spending your time with us today, and we'll talk again soon.
Thanks so much, Hannah.
Bye-bye.